Since my fiance started working second shift, I started having my 3-year-old and 1-year-old sleep in bed with me. Something scary happened last Tuesday, around 11:30 at night. My son CJ woke up from his sleep, crying and scared. I asked what's wrong, and he wouldn't stop pointing at the corner. I used my phone flashlight, which wasn't really helping because the corner was still dark. He's never freaked out that bad before, so I started getting scared. I FaceTimed my fiance, and you know how you FaceTime someone and your flashlight turns off when they pick up? Yeah, when the flashlight went out, CJ was freaking out bad. Then he started acting like whatever he was seeing at the corner of the room was moving closer to the end of our bed. The way you can see the terror in his eyes as his eyes were slowly moving with its movements towards us at the end of the bed, as if it was moving closer to us. CJ was freaking out so bad, scrambling to the corner of the bed, trying to get away from it. He wouldn't stop screaming for me, even though I was trying to help him. I was getting terrified myself, so I turned on the TV. He calmed down a bit, but I had to click on the app KidsTube, and as it was loading up, the screen went dark. Once the room went dark again, CJ started freaking out worse at whatever he was looking at the end of our bed. I finally got his favourite cartoon on, and he finally calmed down and cuddled up with me. He started watching TV until he eventually fell back to sleep. But oh my god, when small kids see something, you've just gotta believe them. I was so scared I left the TV on until my fiance got back from work. CJ sometimes wakes up from a night terror and be pointing at the corner, but I usually cuddle back with him to sleep. That stopped for months. Then, out of nowhere, last Tuesday night, it was like something new showed itself to my son. And this is the same corner my 1-year-old daughter used to smile and laugh with. But this is the worst CJ has ever freaked out. Since that night, almost every single night, he would wake up at 11:30, crying and scared, looking at something. It makes it more legit because it's consistently on time every night. It never fails to show up on time and scare my child. Like, why 11:30? Why is this terrorizing my son? I'm more concerned now because last night at 11:30, my son woke up scared and crying, but was answering yes to whatever he was looking at the end of our bed. I believe he's seeing something that's terrorizing him. My mom has a history of seeing spirits. She can walk into a house and take her time reading the place to know what kind of spirits and how many are in the home. My older brother has a history of experiencing weird shit too, so I know my son is gifted because it runs in his blood. But I want this to stop. It's the bedroom of the house, I know it is. The house has been in my fiance's family for over a few decades. His niece, who's 18 years old now, used to talk to someone in that exact bedroom when she was small. His nephew, who's 5 years old now, used to call someone by the name Abby in the exact same room. And my fiance's little brother, who's 24 now, used to ask his parents about the old man in the bedroom when there was no old man. My fiance says they've gotten monks to bless the home so many times already. You probably won't see this, but we call those things in Islam and Arabic as jinn. They are basically ghosts, but they are not spirits or souls of dead people. I was always confused on how other people were scared of a soul of a dead person instead of a demon or something. They are different beings. Babies or children and animals can see and feel them when they are not hiding themselves, and they can shapeshift like an illusion or something, and change their voice and give you dreams, or nightmares. I remember 2 encounters I had with them. The first was when I was maybe 4 or something, with my 6-year-old brother, and our house was small. We were in the bedroom on the bed with our mother getting ready to sleep, and suddenly we heard marks of scraping. We looked up and saw a mark of 3 nails or 3 lines being made on the ceiling with the sound. Our mother hugged us tightly. They continued about 7 centimeters, then stopped. You might say it's something on the roof or etc. Most, if not all, Arab houses are made with thick concrete or stone blocks which are filled, and the marks were made inside. The next day, when my mother reported the encounter to our father, He said that a couple days ago he felt an urge to wake up from sleep at night, which he did, and saw a small imp-like shadow that quickly darted out of the room as if floating super fast. The door was open a little. For the next couple years or months that we stayed in that house, I woke up to those marks in the ceiling every morning, and to this day, my big brother and mother remember this event. Second encounter was in a new, bigger house. I was laying on my stomach watching TV at the bottom right edge of the bed, and the door was open to my right. In the corner of my eye, I saw a hairless, browless white person slowly sticking one of his eyes out to peek in the room. I turned my eyes just in time to look at him, in the eyes. Then he pulled back super fast. I jumped out of bed and looked into the hallway immediately to see that no one was there. I went to my mom because she was the only white person in the house. She was quite far away in a room at the end of the balcony, ironing clothes, and I asked her, "Mom, were you spying on us?" She replied with no. I don't remember what she said exactly, but I knew my mother when she was lying. Also, she would have made a lot of noise because I checked the hallway very fast. She has a heavy footstep. My little brother told me he once saw my mother heading towards the ironing room and was following her and calling her, but she ignored him and walked fast. He couldn't see her face and she entered the ironing room. Then he went in front of the door and saw no one inside of the room. He peeked his head without entering and found nothing. He felt uneasy entering the room alone, and Mom disappeared, so he walked away. For 3 years, my husband and I lived in a large Victorian townhouse in London. Due to extreme property prices in the area, anyone from the UK will know London prices are something else. We shared the house with two other couples. Some weird shit went down at that house. Banging in the attic, doors opening or closing by themselves, lights turning themselves on and off, scratching in the walls. But none of those compare with two incidents I had in the humming ghost. It's important to note that the first incident happened when it was just myself and my husband in the house. It was a normal evening, and my husband was taking a shower in the downstairs bathroom. While he was showering, I realised I needed to use the toilet, so rather than disturb him, I went to the upstairs bathroom, located directly on top of the downstairs bathroom. I could hear the shower running and him humming to himself, the way he often does. He was humming the tune of Greensleeves. Suddenly, I dropped my phone on the bathroom floor, and he stopped humming as if he'd heard the bang from above. Moments later, he resumed humming, louder now and faster paced. I finished in the upstairs bathroom and went back to our bedroom to wait for my husband to return from his shower. He came in the room about 10 minutes later, and I grinned at him and I said, "I could hear you humming again." He looked confused and said, "I wasn't humming." I said, "Yes, you were. You were humming Greensleeves. It was definitely coming from the downstairs bathroom, and it was definitely your voice. No one else is in. Who could it be?" My husband went pale and told me that he also heard someone humming Greensleeves, but he thought that was me as it was coming from the upstairs bathroom and sounded like my voice. We just looked at each other in quiet horror. He's not one to joke about things like that at all. Plus he's a very bad liar, and I can tell when he's being genuine. Whoever or whatever was humming definitely was sentient and aware as the humming stopped when I dropped my phone. It couldn't have been a neighbour or a housemate and was 100% coming from the downstairs bathroom in my husband's voice. That was the first incident. The second incident was a lot creepier. It was the middle of the night and our cat started doing her usual zoomies and scratching around the bed. I got up to let her out and she dashed on through to the kitchen. Usually she'd head straight to the back door, but this time she stopped suddenly in the middle of the kitchen. Her back arched and her fur puffed up, and she stood completely still and tense, staring at the corner of the room. As soon as I entered the kitchen, I felt something was very wrong. My stomach dropped and I was rooted to the spot. And then the humming started. It was just the same few notes hummed rhythmically and repeatedly. There was no recognizable tune, and the voice this time sounded old and pained and definitely feminine, and was coming from inside the kitchen, over by where the cat was staring. In that corner, there was a small dinner table and chairs, and nothing else to explain the sound. No housemate, no husband, no radio, no other appliances. I was rooted to the spot for God knows how long, just watching the corner of the room and listening to the rhythmic humming. Suddenly, the cat came out of a trance and ran back past me to our bedroom. I was quick to follow and noped the fuck out of the kitchen and sprinted back to our bedroom, leapt into bed, and hid under the covers with the cat under my arm. That happened about 2 years ago, and we've since moved into our own place in a different part of London, but I still think about that humming a lot. Just writing this now sends shivers down my spine. It's hard to do justice to the sheer terror I felt, or how that humming sounded, or how I've spent hours trying to figure out a logical solution. Has anyone else ever experienced anything like this? I live in Melbourne. We're back in a lockdown at the moment, not allowed to go out unless it's for essentials, or our daily 2 hours of permitted exercise. Anyways, we're all a bit sick of it, so two other mates and I decided to go for a couple drinks and a walk. When our night was over, one of my mates went off towards his house on the walk home, and my other mate and I, who I live on the same streets, chose to go down this dirt road that's purely residential and barely ever used because it was a bit of a shortcut. As I'm walking down the road, my friend is on his phone, not paying much attention to anything. I see a street sign up ahead and what appears to be a couple of human-shaped figures pacing up and down around it. I point it out to my friend and he looks up. As he does, one of the figures disappears, and the other starts ducking up and down and moving side to side under the streetlight. We both give each other a quick what the fuck and prepared ourselves to get into some sort of altercation. As we walked towards the street sign, the figure simply disappeared. We got to where it was and shone our phone torches around the area, and there was simply no sign of anyone having been there. And it made sense. As we walked past the area, we saw it, my best friend, heard a quiet screeching noise. Though I did not, but we kept walking very quickly. The road is barely used, it's about 1 a.m. and we're in lockdown where we're being ordered to stay at home. You'd understand if it was just some kids having some harmless fun pranking pedestrians, but there's simply no chance it was. If you wanted to fuck with people, you'd do it on a road that's frequently driven or walked down, and certainly not at 1 a.m. in a lockdown where the chances of actually seeing people to prank are so small. Has anyone else had a similar experience? The figures were so human-like it was mind-blowing to see no trace of anyone having been there. First, some background info. This happened about 4 years ago in a house where I lived with my mom and my brother. My mom and my brother still live there. An old couple died in this house before we moved in. There's a small basement which me and my dad decorated, so it's my extra room, if that makes sense. The basement has a separate door from the outside. One day I was chilling in the basement with my friend watching some movies. We were home alone. My mum was at work until 8 p.m. We told her to bring us some snacks when she comes back. It was about 8:15 when we heard the main door of the house opening, steps going from the living room to the kitchen, chairs moving, etc. Normal noise you hear when someone is upstairs. We both heard it and I was like, my mom came home, and he said, yeah, I hear it. Snacks are here. A few minutes later, my phone rings. It's my mom. I was like, okay, probably she's calling so we get the snacks. I answer and she says, I'm stuck at work. I'll be home by 10. Problem with security. I was speechless. I looked at my friend and he was shaking. He heard my mom through the phone. I had one key to the house. My mom had the other. My brother was at grandma's place. Nobody else had a key. There were only 2 keys. So we went upstairs to the main door. It was locked, lights out. I opened and we searched the house. Nothing weird, just as we left it. There were no chairs moved, even though both of us heard them moving. It gives me chills even thinking about it. I heard a lot of steps and movement upstairs when I was alone in the basement, but didn't think much of it, since only I heard it. But since my friend heard it too, I'm starting to think that everything else I heard was also true, and not just my imagination. This story takes place when I was in 6th grade. I'm 21 now. I lived with my mum and my brother in a small but pretty house. When you enter the house, you have a small place to leave your shoes, then big wooden door to slide to enter the living room. On the left is a hallway. When you enter the hallway on the right is a kitchen, and on the left the bathroom. At the end of the hallway there are 2 bedrooms. My mother's is on the right, and mine, which I shared with my brother, on the left. The living room floor and hallway floor is from a different material. The living room floor is more squeaky. This is important to the story. It was early in the morning. My mom went to work and she drove my brother to school. I also had school, but mine started like 30 minutes later than my brother's, so I stayed at home and watched cartoons. I was laying in bed with the doors open. The doors were behind me. As I'm watching TV, I heard Mom's bedroom door opening. It was very loud, like someone was in a hurry. Then footsteps in the hallway going to the living room. I could hear when footsteps got to the living room since the floor began to squeak. Then the big wooden door sliding. And after that, nothing. Silence. I was terrified. I was in the fetal position on my bed looking for my phone in my bed sheets. Once I found it, I texted my mom, "Someone is in the house." She responded, "Are you joking?" I said, "No, come fast, I'm scared." She sent the neighbour to check on me. The main door and the big wooden doors were closed, but my mom's door was wide open. I still don't know what happened. If this was the only occurrence, I wouldn't even care, but something is definitely in that house. I used to live with my mom, brother, and our pets in a small house around 2017. This house had the presence of 4 spirits, according to my older sister, who can see and feel them. One of the spirits was a young boy, around 7 to 9 years old. The second was a woman. She appeared to my sister without a shirt on. According to my sister, she died very suddenly as she was changing. The third was a young man. My sister didn't know much about him other than the fact that he was a little bit of a prankster. The last one she didn't know much about. It was very hard to read, but very dark. Now, to the incident. I want to preface this with a couple things, as it will rule out potential questions after the fact. I mentioned previously we had pets. This is important because this story involves my old dog. To paint a word picture, he was very energetic, yellow, Labrador, a little over a year old. Now my dog had intense separation anxiety, so whenever I'd leave the house, I left him in the living room or the hallway outside my room, lock the bedroom door. I didn't want him getting into pot paraphernalia, and I'd leave through my window to kind of confuse him. Yes, it's weird, I know, but his area was right next to the front door. Also, I mentioned previously I lived with my mom and brother, and I'd like to point out at the time of this incident, neither of them were home, and my brother swears he had nothing to do with it. Now that that's out of the way, one day I had left to go do something. Fast forward a couple hours and the front door is locked, so I decided to climb back in through my window, and I noticed something weird right off the bat. I have curtains in my window, and right before I climbed in, I could tell that they had been pulled on. I climb into my room and I'm absolutely floored. My entire room is destroyed, and my dog's just sitting there. The door's closed. Also, there's this insanely uncomforting energy as I angrily shoo my dog out of the room. Now, I find this weird for multiple reasons. 1, my dog was just sitting there. He's an extremely energetic boy. 2, my room's destroyed. Posters, records torn off the wall. My bongs and other glass were tilted, but not broken. On my table, my curtains were ripped down. And obviously my first thought is that my brother had let my dog into my room to get back at me for something, and my dog just got anxious and destroyed everything. But the problem with that was A, my brother wasn't home, and B, nothing had bite marks or paw prints or any sign of a dog. And like I said before, posters and things hung on the walls were all over the floor. How could my dog do this? My bongs were on their sides but not shattered. If my dog had really made this mess, they would have been on the floor, broken. C, my door was locked before I left, but somehow unlocked when I returned. At first it looked like it was my dog's doing. It only made sense because of his severe anxiety. But as I explained the details to more of my family, they agreed with me when I said that it was one of our friends. how we used to refer to our house spirits, and they wanted to pin it on my dog for some reason. It's years later and I'm still trying to make sense of it and figure out which one of them it could have been. I've had a couple other experiences in that room in particular, but that was one of the most intense. Shortly after that incident, we blessed the house, moved away, and my older sister moved in with her family. She now has my old room. What I'm about to write about has been spotted in my old house on multiple occasions by two other people than myself. Coincidence or not, here's my little story of what we've seen. The first encounter. I was pretty young, I'd say about 8 to 10 years old. The upstairs of my old house has 3 rooms, all with open doors. It goes bathroom, our bedroom, my sister and I, and my parents' room. The first time I seen this shadow figure was when I was brushing my teeth in our bathroom. I remember seeing this figure perform a trust fall, basically falling backwards with its arms spread into my mom's bed. I witnessed this out of the corner of my eye, or my peripheral vision. I was scared at first, but I brushed it off to just be my imagination. I've seen this figure a few more times, and decided to tell my parents about it. Of course, they didn't believe me, so I decided to just tell myself it was nothing until the next time I see it. This time my sister was with me. Second encounter. So it was late at night. My parents were at the New Year's party, I believe, and my sister and I were home alone. She's 8 years older than me, so she was babysitting, you could say. The downstairs rooms in order were our living room, secondary living room, and our kitchen with a big archway. My sister and I in the kitchen was making sandwiches, and again, through my peripheral vision, I seen this figure sitting on the couch. I tell my sister about it and tell her to slowly back up and don't look right at it. I knew from previous experience it disappeared when looked at straight on. She did as I said and freaked out a little bit. She also seen it sitting on the couch. However, she said it had wings. I didn't see that part. I was just so thrilled somebody else had witnessed it with me. This kind of got me scared and excited at the same time, because I was no longer the only one. Third encounter. Now, I kept this a family secret. I didn't go around telling anybody because I didn't want to sound crazy. That being said, my buddy used to come over a lot and sleep over. We didn't have a spare bed, so we would take a bunch of blankets and lay them out on the living room floor. We would watch movies and eat snacks and just do goofy shit that preteens would do. My sister sometimes accompanied us, and this time she was there. I remember my friend and I pillow fighting when he just stops and drops the pillow. I took the swing and hit him in the head, but he just sat there with a frightened look on his face. I thought I got him good, but then he told me that he'd seen somebody in the other room. I asked him to describe what he'd seen, and he told me it was a man in all black, just like the shadow figure we've been seeing. I took this as confirmation that it may not have been all in my head anymore. Years later, I found out that my mom got the bed from her friend. It was her friend's father's who passed away in that same bed. Could all just be a coincidence, but I'll never forget what I saw. To this day, I'm still skeptical of the paranormal because I've yet to experience anything as an adult, but I keep looking forward to it, as crazy as that sounds. For context, let me start by saying my mom was born in 1935, so this story happened somewhere in the early to mid-40s. At the time, her family was living somewhere near Ignacio, Colorado. Her father, my grandpa, raised sheep for a living, so yeah, they were not well off. I mention all this because it helps explain the circumstances that are to follow. I should also mention my mom was raised strictly devout Catholic. Growing up, she reserved her most severe punishments for lying, and all through my life, I cannot identify a single time where I could honestly say I have witnessed her lying. In the house in which my mom lived, there was no electricity, no plumbing, no heating, and certainly no cooling. My mom said they used to have a wood-burning cast iron cook stove, one with 4 burners covered by lids. I imagine it wasn't very big, because she said they would move it outside in the summer but would bring it outside during the winter, for heat as well as for cooking. The place where it lived during the winter also happened to be the room my mom slept in. One night, Mom said she was awakened by a racket in her room. She turned up the flame on her kerosene lamp and looked to see what was going on. Looking to the stove, she said the burner covers were rattling. For starters, this was a problem because it was summer and the stove had already been moved outside. It was just the stove there, not the stove pipe. The front of the stove was glowing, like it was really hot. After a moment, a ball of flame rose up through the hole where the stovepipe fit. It drifted up to the ceiling and back down into the stove. She said it moved like it was dancing, and it was trailed by a column of smoke and seemed to glow slightly green. At that point, Mom said her kerosene lamp sputtered and went out. When it did, the room went completely dark. There was no fireball, no glowing green smoke, no glow from the stove. Nothing. Only the clattering sound remained. She quickly reignited the lamp, and as light filled the room, the stove and everything else rematerialized. Apparently, my grandma had heard of the commotion. She went to where my mom was sleeping to see what was going on. Mom said that as the door to the room opened, everything stopped. The stove was gone and the noise ceased. Grandma asked Mom what she was doing to make so much racket. Mom couldn't talk. After a few minutes, Mom said that she regained her voice enough to tell Grandma everything. According to my mom, the worst of it came from her mother's reaction. Her mom's demeanor went cold. She stood up, and as she walked out the room, she just said, "Ignore it. It can't hurt you." With that, she left, closing the door behind her. When the door closed, everything started up again. At that point, Mom said she blew out her lamp and screamed to the room, "I am not afraid of you." She then buried herself in the covers and pulled her pillow over her head. She said the clattering went on for at least another hour before it finally stopped. For some background, well into my teens, I had a lot of anxiety related to sleep and windows. Because as a child, up to the age of 4 or 5, my alcoholic neighbour would come home drunk and peer in through my bedroom window. Because of that, I could only sleep in rooms without windows, or which at least had blackout curtains. Likely because of this, I had a nightlight in my room until I was around 6 or 7 years old. At some point, my mom replaced my old nightlight with one that did not have a conventional bulb. Instead, the whole thing just glowed, casting a bluish light. I hated the thing, to the point that I would rather sleep in complete darkness, rather than have it plugged in. The blue light cast eerie shadows across the room. I took to hiding it, so my mom couldn't find it. On this one night, my mom had dressed herself for bed and put me to bed just before heading off herself. This was our routine. My mom had just left, shutting off the lights as she went, and I just rolled over. Because of my anxiety, it always took me a little while to settle in and get comfortable with my surroundings before I could actually fall asleep. Again, I just rolled over and was in the process of getting comfortable when I noticed my headboard was illuminated in blue light. At that point, I was annoyed. Stressed at, annoyed, not fearful nor anxious. I rolled back over, prepared to jump out of bed and rip the nightlight out of the wall. I had assumed my mom had somehow found it and plugged it in when I wasn't looking. The glow was not from the nightlight. When I looked at where it should have been, it wasn't there. Instead, there was a ball of blue light bobbing up and down in the center of my room. It looked like a miniature blue sun, complete with a corona, but dim, maybe as bright as a cell phone screen. It was roughly the size of a softball. Now, up to the moment I saw the ball of light, my memories were crystal clear. My mum had just left the room, I had just rolled over and noticed the glow on my headboard, all within a minute, if that. I remember having one foot out of bed, getting ready to hit the floor. However, from the moment I saw the light, my memories became jumbled. The next thing I clearly remember was screaming my head off, except I was in bed, tucked in, face down in my pillow. I thought my mom would have come in immediately. She had to have been right at the door because she had just closed it. When she did finally come in, she had pillow lines on her face and she looked barely awake. Needless to say, she said it was a dream, but to this day I know that it wasn't. To be honest, I cannot say what it was.